welcome to another episode of
Zeng This.
You actually beat me on the intro this time. Cool. Well, you got me, Zenger. Across from me, you got
Ellie.
And I guess was there a trailer for a comic book movie out this week?
Maybe.
Well, we'll get to that one at the end because I have a little bit of a discussion to make on that particular one. But there's another one that you watched that you thought was pretty interesting, right, Ellie?
Oh, are you talking about Baywatch?
Yes.
Well, I am a sucker for Dwayne Johnson movies.
And this is definitely one of them. He's been posting on his Twitter, on his Instagram. I know a lot about it. So finally getting to see a trailer was really cool. It's just some goofy, fun movie.
Definitely don't take this seriously. Obviously,
no. This is not a movie to take seriously.
I love some of the throwbacks with like the comment about the girl running in slow mo, and he's like, "Oh, did you see that too?" And
it always looks like she's running in slow motion. Did you notice that too?
I thought that was great. So it looks fun.
Yeah. Wondering if there's going to be a Hasselhoff.
A little cameo.
Possible cameo.
I'd be okay with that.
That would definitely be cool.
And don't forget about Pamela Anderson.
I know. She could definitely make an appearance too. So that it would be a nice nod or something. I can see them doing after credits or during the credits, little wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Yeah, and I don't know how many of you guys out there liked the new Ghostbusters movie. I thought it was entertaining enough, but I did like the way they did the quick, cute little cameos of all the people from the original movie. So I'd appreciate it in this one as well.
Awesome. Well, moving on to the next trailer that debuted this past week that was pretty interesting. War for the Planet of the Apes, which would be the third installment in the something Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, the
movies.
Ones nowadays.
So this one was definitely building off of events from the last one. I know that there was supposed to be some scenes cut out of the last one that showed that the army was supposed to be getting involved, if I remember correctly. Trying to remember back to this movie. I know it's one I only saw in theaters. It was good. It just wasn't something. Planet of the Apes movies are cool. Don't get me wrong. I'm just wondering how much further they're going to push the progression of these. Not that I'm upset with them or anything. It's just I'm wondering how much further they're going to keep progressing it until if we're finally just getting straight up remakes of the original Planet of the Apes. So that's the thing. I'm wondering how much further this is going to continue on. Looks interesting. Definitely those movies.
They make me sad.
Yeah, those movies are not for the faint of heart. It's one of those things, not trying to spoil any of the other ones if you haven't seen them, but there's so many chances for people to make the right choices or for things to go the right way, and they always backfire.
Yeah.
And I don't want to spoil the ending to the last one if you haven't seen it, but it's interesting that the events from that one are bleeding into this one because of certain individuals' choices. I don't want to say people, but certain individuals' choices from the previous one are leading into this one, which I'm sure will lead into the next one, possibly. Don't know. We'll see what happens. I also enjoyed the one-off characters they have. They have in this one...
Woody Harrelson.
Yes, and previous one they had Gary Oldman, and before that they had James Franco. They do a good job. Each of them does good in their respective roles, so I'm very interested to see what he's going to bring to the table. His character seems interesting from the short part we got in the trailer, but... we'll see what happens with that. Now moving on to the last two trailers, which will be a little bit more in-depth of a discussion. Not too in-depth. Maybe that will be next week. Maybe it'll be the week after. I don't know. We'll find out. I'm going to start with Transformers trailer, The Last Night. Once again, being done by Michael Bay.
Oh, yay, another one.
If you haven't gathered from this podcast, I am a Transformers fan of the original cartoon. Mostly first season, Gen 1 into the movie. A little bit after that as well is what I'm grew up on, was primarily a fan of. Thanks to my older brother, Chris, who had me watch the movie and stuff with him. It was really cool. I got to hang out with him and watch it, and it was all fun. And I really loved the Transformers as a kid, and I get a lot of people that do ask me what my feelings are on what Michael Bay's done. And I'm not going to get into a huge in-depth discussion with this, and I don't want to divide the internet with anything too drastic, but because we did mention the Ghostbusters movie on here already, so this is already a divisive intro to the podcast.
It was a quick mention.
So I'll just say this. They're whatever to me. They don't ruin the franchise for me or add to it. They're just an interesting thing to have. I don't know where they're going with this one. I've heard a lot of people say that they're starting to make steps to try to do a soft reset possibly, or try to fix some continuity errors they may have had with it. So that would be interesting if they did. Am I upset with what they've done with the Transformers movie so far? No, I'm just indifferent. If I really want to watch a Transformers movie, I'll pop in the 1986 animated one and sit there and reminisce while watching that. So
I'm going to tell you my opinion.
okay. Explosions, more explosions.
Yes. So I don't come for the movies. I don't come to the movies for a great immersive storyline, character development. I just want to see Transformers. So they're good enough for me just because I love the huge action and the explosions. So.
And that's why Michael Bay is going to keep getting to make these. They make money. And that's what Michael Bay does with these movies is he makes money from them and everyone gets upset, and it's just he's making money, so no studio is going to be like, "Hey, stop that." Because he's bringing them in lots of money. But that being said, am I overly excited about it? Possible Unicron in it. Optimus Prime evil for some reason, possibly influenced by Dark Energon. Interesting. If you noticed, his eyes are normally blue, but in some portions of the trailer where he's fighting other people, they're purple. So that could be a possible Dark Energon influence. That would be interesting. We'll see what happens. I mean, like I said, is this something I'm super excited about? Meh. Is it something I'm going to go see? Probably. Something I'm going to be happy with? Who knows? We'll see. But now moving on to something I am excited about, and something that I think a lot of people on the internet and a lot of people from this podcast are also very excited about. Spider-Man Homecoming. So definitely an amazing trailer. I thought they did a fantastic job. Great job with the music. Great job with just showing the humor of Spider-Man.
Yeah.
The part where they're robbing the bank and he kind of just walks in, puts his arm up. That's Spider-Man for me. It's him making these
quirky kid.
Making these quips, making these funny jokes every now and then. Just being this person who's in a fight and will sit there and be cracking wise the entire time.
Right.
Not fourth wall breaking, cracking wise like somebody else who's masked who wields possible katanas and some guns, but definitely cracking jokes. I enjoyed the little, Hulk's the one that gave it away on you guys. That, and then when he was fighting the guy, he just was dodging him when he could obviously have just taken him out, but just was having fun with it.
Right.
So that was really cool. They're definitely, I think the most important thing I'm going to take away from this is they're trying to differentiate. Make sure that this one is differentiated from the others.
Yes, definitely a different feel from the others.
Once again, this is the youngest person to play Spider-Man. He was actually a teenager during some of the shooting of I believe it was Civil War. He was a teenager during that shooting process. So definitely one of the youngest. He looks like someone from high school. He doesn't look like some buddy from Dawson's Creek being in high school, quote unquote. So there's that. Phenomenal what they did with him in the trailer. Now I'm gonna move on to the villain real quick. I'll probably wrap back around and have some more comments about Spider-Man. So you got the Vulture. You got Michael Keaton.
Awesome.
As the Vulture. So that's interesting. I think he's going to do a phenomenal job with it. He's definitely a great actor.
So he must like bird characters.
Birds and characters that can fly. Because ironically, I was going to steal a Batman quote for this particular situation where you either die the hero and live long enough to see yourself become a villain. And what has he done?
Birdman.
He went from Batman to
Bird.
Birdman
Yes.
to now the Vulture.
Exactly.
So obviously now the villain. And I think the costume design looks great for him. The wings, the propellers in the wings looked awesome. So it definitely made sure that it was differentiating itself. A very important thing I want to point out, and this is just me kind of going on a quick little speculation because maybe I want to save some more discussion for possibly next week. Don't know yet. We'll see what happens. I think that Spider-Man could be an interesting bridge between the Avengers and the Defenders. Not he's been very associated with both with the Defenders or both those teams too much, but I'm just saying Spider-Man's somebody who's kind of a mid-level hero. He works with the Avengers, but he also kind of works down on the street level with a lot of those people as well. So I think that if they kind of try to stick to the comics or try to take stuff from the comics, there might be an interesting bridge there between the two of them. We'll see what they do with it. I don't think that's going to happen because they have kind of wanted to keep their Netflix adventure, ABC adventure separate. It's taking place in the same world, but they don't really connect with each other. They're kind of all good guys for the same goal of keeping the planet, their neighborhood, or whatever safe, but they're not really doing it together yet. So who knows what we'll see in the future. Future could bring a lot of different stuff. But yeah, the suit, really well done.
Well, and you could see, this is just, going out on a limb too, but you could see more bridging just because with Netflix having that deal with Disney and being able to have a lot of the Marvel and Disney and all those different franchises coming to Netflix a lot sooner than anybody else. So it might be something eventually that they will want to do.
Who knows? Like I said, it would be cool to get into that. So could it happen? It's possible. I don't know how much they're willing to go and do with that. It would be cool, but we'll see what happens in the future.
Yeah.
As for I'm going to just real quick touch on the costume. Thought was his costume, the one that Stark gives him, because you do see his old one in the trailer briefly here and there. The one that Stark gives him is pretty interesting. It's obviously got a lot of Stark tech in it. It's got a lot of little gizmos and gadgets. Interesting thing when his friend catches him in his bedroom with it on. He hits something and it kind of like almost falls off him. So I thought that was interesting. How that's sort of how it clings to him and then falls, and it can kind of just come off of him very quickly to change from his Spider-Man outfit to his just regular clothes. So that was cool. Another thing we did see was the web wings.
Yep.
Which I'm not saying it's a direct correlation, but if I remember correctly, the Iron Spider outfit, the one that Tony gave him during Civil War, could glide and could actually fly slightly. So maybe that's just their way of once again making
connecting
sure
it.
Once again that you understand this is not Spider-Man from the Amazing Spider-Man. This is not Spider-Man from the Sam Raimi. This is a completely different Spider-Man. He has a different suit. He's using different things. So that would be a cool way to connect, something from the comics. Is that what they're doing? Who knows? We might get that actual Spider-Man outfit in the movie. We don't know. So, like I said, it's just one trailer. And another very important thing to point out, him holding that, the barge together, the ship, when it's split in half and he's got the webbing and he's holding it together. Obviously, I think that they were trying to make a callback to the Spider-Man scene in Spider-Man 2 where he's saving all those people on that train and is having to stop the train. So I think that was an obvious kind of, once again, same but different. Obviously a Spider-Man thing to do, but this is not the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. This is not the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man. This is the new Spider-Man. This is the Avengers linked Spider-Man.
Well, and the fact that Iron Man is in it.
Yeah.
I mean, kind of.
I mean, how heavy do you think he's going to be in it, though? I mean, the trailer seemed to imply that he was going to be just there.
Yeah, I mean, definitely the trailer makes it look like, Iron Man's taking Spider-Man on as his
pupil.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know.
You had that one clip at the end where it showed Spider-Man swinging and Iron Man flying with him. So, I mean, who knows? I'd like to think they're going to let Spider-Man helm himself, but the storyline that I'm kind of getting from the trailer is that Tony's kind of babying him. Mm-hmm. He's treating him like a kid because he's going to be like, you are a kid. You have great power, and with great power comes great responsibility. So I'm sure that might get hammered home and in that. what we're about to get into is a very interesting thing that started as sort of a, well, let's do some quick research, and it turned into, wow.
Yeah.
We decided to look into movies that you might not realize were based on books, and we found some very interesting stuff.
Oh, yeah, some really cool stuff.
Our co-host Rob will be joining us on that for that, and we'll see you guys on the other side of the break. This is
Zing This.
You always beat me to it. Welcome back to Zing This. You've got me, Zinger.
And Ellie.
And Rob.
And our discussion today is going to be based around movies that you might not have realized were based on books. And we're going to, of course, start our discussion with the Harry Potter. No, I'm just kidding. Actually, Ellie's going to start by talking about the Lord of the Rings. Nah, just kidding. We're going to actually start with Mrs. Doubtfire.
Yeah.
Not kidding on that one, people. It was actually based on a book called Madame Doubtfire.
Did not know that.
So that's our interesting one to get started with. Ellie, you've got one.
I do have one. So I know you get frustrated when I watch this a million times, but I love the Pitch Perfect movies. And did you know that that was made after a book?
No, I did not.
Yeah. The book was called Pitch Perfect, The Quest for Collegiate Acapella Glory. And Mickey Rapkin wrote it. And the author actually spent a year studying 3 different colleges and their collegiate a cappella programs to make sure the content was, true to the source.
Interesting. I would have never guessed that that was based on a book.
I know.
Just because of the way it's done.
Yeah.
Rob, what do you got for us?
Well, one particular movie that some people might know is based on a book, but the movie's popularity definitely outweighs it is Jaws, was a book...
The first one, right? We're not talking about Jaws 5 or 3D here, right?
Actually, what's the one where he fights Ivan Tchaikovsky?
No, the first one.
Book written by Peter Benchley, which has some interesting differences from the movie. Richard Dreyfuss's character was actually supposed to have an affair with Roy Scheider's wife in the movie, or in the book, and for some reason they seem to not want to include that plot point in the movie, but interesting subplot.
Maybe they didn't. They just did not make it obvious whatsoever that it was part of the movie.
Steven Spielberg had a quote, something along the lines that, like, the biggest problem with the book was he hated the characters so much that he was actually rooting for the shark.
Oh.
And if you read the book, the characters aren't the most likable.
So, you just mentioned Steven Spielberg. I think he'll be coming up later on in these discussions that we are having. Yes. Another one that I think that a lot of people might realize is based on a book, or might not, Fight Club.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely a cult hit. Definitely
No,
something
that's a favorite of yours.
It is. It is. Both the book and the movie. The reason I wanted to bring this up is for an excuse to say a very fun fact about the movie and about the book. The author of the book, Chuck Palahniuk, has openly admitted during interviews that he actually... that he is sort of embarrassed of his book by comparison to the movie, which I find interesting because a lot of people, complain that the book was better than the movie, but he's openly saying that they did a better job of interpreting his work than he did, which is cool because, the movie definitely does a great job. It does differ from the book in a lot of key points. I'm not going to get into that now. Watch the movie.
Everything does.
Watch the movie, read the book. It's definitely worth it if you have any interest in. If you've watched one or read one, definitely do the vice versa because it's worth it. Ellie, I know you've got probably a fun one to tell us.
Did you know that Shrek was a book?
No, actually I did not.
Yeah, William Steig wrote it back in 1990, or it came out in 1990, and a director that we have mentioned previously just a few minutes ago, Steven Spielberg.
I feel we should have a Spielberg counter. It might get into the double digits.
Yeah, it was 10 years after the book came out that it was made, but it was made into a movie.
Fascinating. I didn't know that it was based on... I knew that there was a lot of development stuff with it that it took forever. Mm-hmm. So knowing that it was based on a book now, that kind of makes sense to where, maybe that's why it took so long for stuff to get going on it. And the fact that Steven Spielberg was involved with his company, of course, of DreamWorks Animation. So, Rob.
Jackie Brown, which of course is a Quentin Tarantino film, that was based on a book called Rum Punch by Elmore Leonard. And obviously Quentin Tarantino put his own twist on the movie, but the movie is based on a novel, and I think that's the only thing Tarantino's ever done where he adapted it from another source material and didn't just write the script himself. Obviously, he wrote a lot of the dialogue himself, but was based on a novel.
Yeah, I was not aware of that, and I've watched plenty of Quentin Tarantino movies, and actually was not aware of that fact.
Yeah, I didn't know.
The writer of the novels has praised the movie, saying it's good.
That's definitely cool. I'm hoping that trend continues. It won't.
Nope.
So... my next one is Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which is based on the book Who Censored Roger Rabbit by Gary Wolfe. An interesting thing about this, though, is the movie and the book differ drastically from each other. I'm not going to get into all the differences between them, but I'm just going to say this, that the movie takes one route, the book takes another, and they're both interesting in their own way. But I just wanted to point that one out because that one is one probably everyone thought that Robert Zemeckis and all them just thought up as a cool crossover thing back in the day. But apparently it was inspired, I guess, more so than based off of a book. So that's mine there. Ellie?
Yes. I would like to say, I'm not sure how many people out there know that Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon is based off of a book.
No, I did not. That's interesting.
Yes. Wang Dulu is the author, and it's actually part of it's the fourth book in a 5-part series, Crane Iron series. So I thought that was kind of cool.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Once again, not what I would have expected to hear on this discussion.
Yeah.
So, Rob, we're going to go to you, and I think yours has to do with it's that time of year for this movie.
Yes, of course, you can't have a Christmas without watching Die Hard.
It is true.
Good segue.
Yeah, it is based on a book called Nothing Lasts Forever by Roderick Thorpe.
Why does that sound like a Bond movie?
A Bond villain, you mean?
No, I meant that Nothing Lasts Forever. It just it has a Bond ring to it.
Isn't there...
Actually,
there's a Bond movie with a similar title.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
On the note of Bond, real quick, almost all of the Bond movies are based on books, but that's something a lot of people... for the most part, a lot of them are, but I don't think they're direct interpretation. I know Casino Royale is, because that's actually the first one, so that one's interesting.
There's Diamonds Are Forever, and there's...
That's the one. Diamonds
Never
Are
Say Never Again, and...
There we go. Thanks, Rob.
Nothing Lasts Forever. That does seem like it could be a Bond movie.
It does, but it's actually a Die Hard movie, so... Any more fun facts on that one?
Oh, not that I know of. Do you know any fun facts?
I actually do. It was written as a sequel to the book The Detective, which was also adapted into a movie that starred Frank Sinatra.
Whoa.
So there's kind of a double whammy there.
Yeah.
I wonder what the writer of the book thinks about the Die Hard sequels.
That is a good question.
Well, I have another one for you.
Awesome.
You remember that cute little movie Clueless?
Yes.
Oh, God.
Mixed opinions.
Well, that was made, we're going to say loosely. So
Okay.
It was loosely based after a Jane Austen novel
Really?
from 1815 called Emma. And
Huh.
Cher, the main girl in the movie,
Yeah.
was based off of the character Emma Woodhouse in that book.
Fascinating. I did not realize that. So
Yeah.
that is kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I think sticking with the high school motif, Rob has one that I know he is just dying to talk about.
So here's a fun fact. One of my personal favorites, Mean Girls.
He's not lying about that one, people. It's also one of mine.
Mean Girls is based on a novel called Queen Bees and Wannabes by Rosalind Wiseman or Wiseman.
I'm going to go with Wisman.
And Tina Fey supposedly added some
Personal touches.
influence from her own life into the movie.
That's one, like I said, when I watched it, did not know that it was based on a book.
I
Or
did
inspired
not
by a
know
book.
either, but makes sense. It's got some compelling characters and
Awesome. Well, Ellie, I think you've got another one before things get interesting.
I do. Another one I have is, you remember Rambo First Blood?
Yes, and then the following, how many of those have they made?
We're talking about the first one.
Okay.
So there was a book called First Blood that it was based after.
Interesting.
It was written by David Morrell, and it did have quite a difference between the book and the movie.
I have heard that.
Should I say spoiler?
Spoiler alert.
Okay, spoiler alert. So basically, in the book, Rambo was killed by Sheriff Teasel.
Oh,
Yes,
that's
but
drastically different and
Yes.
saves a lot of people time and effort in a Rambo marathon.
exactly. But of course, we can't kill him off in the movie because then there can't be 85 sequels.
Correct.
So yeah, so there you go.
All right. We're at a point now to where in our research we came across some very interesting things. We've kind of mentioned one-off books that were one-off authors and books that have had movies based after them that people might not have know of. But now we move into a very interesting topic of authors that have had multiple adaptations of their.
Clash of the Titans.
I know you're probably thinking that Stephen King will be on this list. A lot of people do already realize that some of the ones that he has written, the books that he has written, have been adapted into movies. Rob probably can rattle off a few that you
There's-
might not be aware of, though.
in case you didn't know, The Shawshank Redemption was a novella by Stephen King, as was The Green Mile. So was Apt Pupil and The Running Man. And I'm just going to say this, if you want a good read, pick up Different Seasons. It's a collection of novellas, and two in there, Rita Hayworth and The Shawshank Redemption, which is what The Shawshank Redemption is based off of. And one of my personal favorite stories and movies, The Body, which was adapted into the movie Stand By Me, which is one of the rare occurrences where Stephen King has actually praised the adaptation and said it was good. The book, there are some mild changes, but anyway, I'm just going to say read the book and watch the movie. They're both good.
And sorry.
I just wanted to make sure that we covered Stephen King, so I'm sure a lot of people are like, why do they talk about King at all? But a lot of people do know what he has adapted. Another interesting...
Believe it or not, Stephen King's It was based on a book by Stephen King.
Whoa.
And I wanted to say, too, if we're giving suggestions of Stephen King books, 4 Past Midnight is really good, too. That one had The Secret Window and Langoliers.
Yeah, Secret. I was trying to remember what the movie was called, but yeah, Secret Window is one.
But Langoliers is really good, too, if you've never
Wasn't
read that
The
one.
Mist one of his movies as well?
Yeah.
There we go. I mean, another one of his books that was
Yeah,
adapted into
right.
a movie. There we go.
There's countless ones.
There is. I actually looked at the list before this to see if I could grab anything, and it just kept going. But another one that I'm kind of interested in, they might be adapting, they are adapting, is the Dark Tower series.
Right.
Is getting a film treatment or TV series treatment. I can't remember which off the top of my head right now. Just wanted to point that one out. Rob, I know, is not the biggest fan of that.
I didn't hate it. I read The Gunslinger. I never read any of the ones after it, and I just wasn't crazy about it.
Well, and they have graphic novels too, haven't they?
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
So that's kind of our Stephen King homage real quick, even though what we're about to get into might be just as interesting. Ellie, would you like to start giving us some mind-blowing facts about an author?
I'm going to give you a little bit about a gentleman named Philip Dick.
Philip K. Dick.
He's awesome.
Yes. What did he do? We're about to find out.
I know, right? Well, anybody ever heard of Blade Runner?
Which version of the movie?
Ooh, true.
I guess this will refer to all of them, though.
Well, the book was called Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep?
Interesting.
And it is loosely based. That is one that is loosely based. But Philip K. Dick has done...
Before we jump away from Android's Dream of Electric Sheep, I know that has a lot, that not just Blade Runner. Apparently, a lot of other movies have taken from this. I don't have the exact list at hand right now. I just know that this has been mentioned before in other very interesting discussions and movies that had an influence from this book. So it definitely wasn't just Blade Runner, but it did kind of morph out into other avenues. So let's see what else Mr. Dick has given us.
And some of these I know the movie, but I'm not quite sure so if you can help me remember.
I got you.
I can't remember exactly what all the books were called, but Total Recall
was based off of a short story called We Can Remember It For You Wholesale.
Well, nice. But that one's a very popular one. A Scanner Darkly.
Which film adaptation did feature Keanu Reeves and Winona Ryder and Robert Downey Jr. Robert Downey Jr. actually. There, I can talk again.
It's okay.
And the book or the short story was by the same name for that one.
Awesome. And then Minority Report.
Which was based off of a short story called The Minority Report. So I think our Spielberg counter gets another ding on it with that. Ding. So Spielberg counter moving on up.
And that's a book that was inspired a movie and a TV show.
Correct.
Yes. And Paycheck.
Which starred Ben Affleck.
Yeah.
And was based on a short story by the same name.
Awesome. And then not sure how many people remember this movie, but Next.
It was a Nicolas Cage movie. How do you forget those?
Oh, I know.
And by the way, we finally get to talk about Nicolas Cage.
Yes.
Not the bears. And now we move on.
All right, that was fun.
And then
We'll be back.
One other one for all those Prime people out there that have.
Real quick before you get there, the next movie was loosely based off of a short story called The Golden Man. So there is the Philip K. Dick story that it was loosely based off of.
Oh, Next with Nicolas Cage.
Yes. Nicolas Cage.
I don't know if
I'm gonna steal the Declaration of Independence.
Oh my gosh.
I'm gonna light my head on fire.
And the last one that we're gonna mention with Mr. Dick is The Man in the High Castle.
For all you Prime members.
Yes.
Very interesting novel. Just going to talk about real quick. I'm not going to get into it, but it's an alternate history where basically the U.S. lost World War II and is invaded by both Germany and Japan. And
they split the country.
Yes, and I'm simplifying this to the barest bones of what it is. Go read the book. If you can find it. I think it's hard to find right now, if I remember correctly. I might be wrong on that. Or you could just watch it on Amazon. So there's those options. Now, we move on to another titan of the pen, another maestro of the page, Michael Crichton.
Yes.
Now, I'm sure what you're thinking is, oh, well, of course, you're going to talk about Crichton because of Jurassic Park and The Lost World. Well, there you go. I gave you 2 that he did that probably a lot of people are aware of. But are you aware they also wrote Congo?
No.
He also wrote the movie Timeline as well, which had a movie interpretation done of it that featured movie stars such as Paul Walker and Gerard Butler. And of course was not well received, but just an interesting tidbit on the movie adaptation and some star power that they got behind it.
And I think we've discussed this before. I'm not super critical on movies, but it wasn't that bad as far as the movie's concerned. But the book was really good.
It was all right, but it was no Congo.
No, different movie.
Moving on to a few other movies that were inspired by works by Michael Crichton that you might not be aware of. The Andromeda Strain, The Terminal Man. And this one is going to have an interesting little twist to it. Eaters of the Dead. I'm for sure you're probably thinking, I've never heard of that movie, and it sounds like a zombie movie. It's not. It is actually the interpretation that was adapted for film was called The 13th Warrior, featuring Antonio Banderas. So that one was one I actually remember watching as a kid, and I probably should watch now because I feel that it would be one that I have rose-tinted glasses on. Because I don't know. I feel like I need to rewatch that one. If anyone's seen that one, like I said, that one's an obscure one that I didn't realize was...
Yeah, I had no idea.
Was something from Michael Crichton. So that is interesting. The Sphere, Sphere, was based on a book by Crichton, which featured some very interesting cast of Dustin Hoffman, Samuel L. Jackson, and...
Peter Coyote.
Yes. Sharon Stone as well was in that movie. So that one had a very interesting cast. I know a lot of people really like that movie.
Yeah,
so that one is one that you might not have realized was based on based on a Michael Crichton thing. By the way, if you did not realize earlier, your Spielberg counter should have gone up one more for the mention of Jurassic Park.
Ding, 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 ding.
So Crichton counter helps out the Steven counter on that one. Moving on to...
Crichton also has a writer credit for Twister.
That
Another
is
fun fact.
That is interesting on that one. We'll get to another movie he had to write he helped write, or that he just straight up wrote momentarily that might be a little bit more topical right now than people might realize. Moving on. Rising Sun, which featured Sean Connery and Wesley Snipes, and
Tia Carrere
and Harvey Keitel.
Oh, you are having a hard time talking today.
It's all these names. So that's another one that was adapted from a work that he did. Disclosure is another one that had a film adaptation. That had Demi Moore, Michael Douglas, Donald Sutherland, and Dennis Miller in it. So that one's interesting. I know that this is going to divide some people because there wasn't a book based off it, but Jurassic Park 3, hold on, put down your pitchforks, put down your flaming torches. There was parts taken from the original Jurassic Park book that were put into the third one. I'm not saying he wrote it. I'm not saying it was definitely used inspiration from the original Jurassic Park book. The aviary and the river stuff was...
Yeah, now that you mention it, I guess in the book there is a part where Alan, Lex, and Tim get chased by a T-Rex on a raft in the river.
And pterodactyls were involved that you don't really ever see in the first movie that much. So
if you read the book, the raptors can actually talk, but they can only say Alan. No,
It took me a minute on that one. It took me a minute on that one. Such an awful Jurassic Park movie. Anyways.
They should have killed Hammond and taken another thing from the book in the third one.
One more before I get to a very interesting one. The Great Train Robbery was the book. The movie was the first Great Train Robbery, which was actually directed by Crichton and featured, once again, Sean Connery and Donald Sutherland. So, very interesting.
Sean Connery love.
So I guess we could have a Connery counter.
Nah, only twice.
Okay.
Eh.
I tried. So for the final one, he did not write a book that this was based off of, but he did write the script and did direct it. So I am including it because of current events. Ellie is shaking her head at me because she's shamed that I did this, but I am pulling this out and using it.
Doesn't count.
I'm using it because it's interesting. And
He's pulling a 7 ways of Kevin Bacon on this one.
I'm using it. He directed and wrote the Westworld movie that, of course, the HBO series is inspired by. So I just wanted to make sure to point that out, that it is very interesting. And I'll get into something else real quick after I give you this one fun fact. This served as his first theatrical film that he directed and wrote. So just interesting fact there. Now, to move on, I'm not going to spoil anything from the HBO show per se. If you want to piece things together, that's your prerogative, but I'm not spoiling it in my opinion. Of course, in the movie Westworld, I will spoil something out of that real quick. Of course, it is a theme park where people go to, experience stuff they wouldn't experience in their normal life. Sound familiar? Jurassic Park, maybe? Well, if you know what happens in Jurassic Park, then not to spoil this for you, but similar thing happens in the Westworld movie. Attractions go awry, everything goes crazy, and everything starts falling apart. This was actually a very interesting movie for when it was made because of the development of that they had notions of computer viruses as well as some other very interesting things. And I believe this was the first time 2D computer graphics were utilized in a film too. So just a lot of fun facts about something that a lot of people have probably been watching recently and might not have known that it kind of Crichton had his hand in that as well. So that's definitely interesting.
Since you mentioned Jurassic Park, I had to throw this in here. One movie you probably didn't know was based on a novel, and you might have not even known it was a movie. Carnosaur.
Oh, no.
That sounds like that would be on my
is actually
bad
based,
movie.
Ellie's E-rate movies.
based on a book by John Brosnan. If you have not seen Carnosaur, drop everything what you're doing, pause the podcast and come back to it, but go watch Carnosaur. It's a brilliant artistic masterpiece.
Rob, I asked for obscure movies that we didn't know were based on.
Obscure cinematic brilliance.
Fine, I will let you have this one. Maybe Ellie will be forced to watch that later for her segment on Ellie's E-rate movies.
I've totally got, if you want to borrow it, I've got Carnosaur 2 also.
Do you got it on
fine.
VHS? Because I feel like that's the only way to watch that movie.
Nah, I got it on DVD.
Do you have a VHS player?
No, I was trying to save you.
I'm down. I can watch it.
All right, I think that will wrap up our movies that you didn't realize were based on books discussion. I don't think this is the last one we're going to have. We might possibly do a movies that you didn't realize were based on comics soon as well. I know.
Yes.
Ellie perked up
I already have one ready.
on that one. So that would be something we
Did
can...
you know Batman Begins is based on a comic book called Batman?
I'm sorry. My mind is blown now. So... Once again, we had a lot of fun with this topic. We learned a lot from it, so I hope you guys did as well. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back on the other side of the break. This has been...
Zeng This.
Keep stealing it from me.
Welcome back to Zeng This. So I thought that was quite a fun discussion.
Yeah, definitely had some stuff in there that I really didn't realize was based on books. So, I mean...
Yeah.
But I actually have two more real quick that I'm just going to touch on because I had these in my notes. I just completely overlooked them during the discussion because I got kind of distracted by some Crichton stuff, which, as we saw, has a lot. So, real quick ones. If you all remember the movie The Thing.
Oh, yeah.
Great movie. One of my favorite horror movies. definitely ranks high up there, is actually based on a science fiction novella called Who Goes There by John W. Campbell Jr. So that's just an interesting,
Cool.
another addition to that real quick. And the other one I'm just going to mention here, I know a lot of you probably have watched the movie Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Yes.
Is actually based on a book called Fast Times at Ridgemont High, a true story. So those were two other quick ones that I just had in my notes. It's just I think they got accidentally overlooked with the...
Well, there's a lot. So
I mean,
we're not going to be able to
we
mention
could
them all.
obviously do another one of these at some point in time
Yeah.
because there is a lot more, but...
Or maybe even do one that's based off of graphic novels.
We could. We definitely mentioned that during the discussion as well.
Yes.
So I guess we're going to just start winding things down and wrapping things up real quick. But a very important note, I want to point out that this very episode, was brought to you by one of our listeners because they are actually one of our contributors on Patreon. This was brought to you by Kat. Who's one of our good friends, and she contributed to the podcast. So this episode was brought to you by Kat. And we
Thanks,
just want
Kat.
to say thanks, Kat. If you want more stuff on that, of course, go to our Patreon page. If you donate a certain amount, we'll definitely have an episode that's brought to you by you. So check that out. Of course, patreon.com/Zeng This. So that's a way to help if you want to help us. But what's another way to find us to just talk to us or see what's going on with us, Allie?
SoundCloud, Sing This.
Is one of the best ways to listen to us.
Yeah, and for all those iPhone people,
In
iTunes.
Apple devices?
Yes.
iTunes.
Sing This.
iTunes Zeng This. And if you are a Android user, we are on Google Play as well under Zeng This. We're also on Stitcher, Zeng This. So there's some other ways to find us.
Twitter, @Sing This.
Yes, if you want to give us a tweet, we post stuff on there every now and then, so you might get little hints dropped at what we might be doing. Gonna try to get more active on that stuff starting next year. So definitely gonna amp up some of our social media presence very soon. So keep an eye out for that. But speaking of social media, if you want to be a fan of us, where can they go to do that?
Facebook, Sing This.
So you can definitely join our page on there and become a fan of that as well. Get some more behind the scenes stuff with that too. So we'll be posting more on there. And finally, if they want a hint at what the Monday's episode could be about on Sunday, we put a collage out on what every week.
We put a collage out on Instagram @Zing This Podcast.
So those are the ways to get in touch with us. If you want to email us directly, you can of course do that zingthis@gmail.com.
Yep.
So those are the quick ways to get a hold of us. We just kind of wanted to give that nice little shout out there to what was deserved. And that being said, we'll see you guys next week, and we're gonna have DJ Golden Boy 89 play us out.
Yes.
Where's our Spielberg counter at?